My name is Garrett Ashley. My story is called The Day I Left Helheim in Letters, and I'm going to read a short excerpt. Dear son number 1, I have a soul in my soul eating me away from the inside. That's what the priest said in his office when I asked what my bad energy meant. I told him I could feel the fires of hell burning in me. Set out the word of God, burn a few candles, take a bath, let my hair down, cut my hair off, put on some makeup, find happiness, drive a car. That's what the priest told me to do. What I did instead was what my sister told me to do. Get help. Get out of here. I needed rest. You understand, there's more to the story than what your father told you. I wanted badly to believe things were going to be okay. I didn't think any of this was your fault. I remember things from where we lived. There was a tree outside the house that had a knot on it that looked like a witch's face. In the corner of the garage, a bucket full of broken fishing reels. You went through 4 trampolines growing up, wrestling too hard with friends, wearing your shoes, bouncing too much on one foot. You weren't even that big when you were little. This is just what comes to mind as I'm writing. I don't think any of this is your fault. I felt busy in the mind for a long time, blocked by something. There were insects in the basement. You remember, I talked to them like people. Your father started talking to them. Eventually it wore off on them. Perhaps he started to think I was lonely. I was never lonely. Please don't ever think I was lonely with you. What is this piece about? The Day I Left Helheim is about a traumatized, estranged mother trying and failing to reconnect with her family. These 4 sections are all about different things. I think it really depends on who she's talking to in each individual letter. I wanted to write a story about someone who'd run away and turned invisible. I was interested in knowing what this person would say, and I thought it might be worth noting that, by the way, these 4 sections are probably best read independently. And I realize that the aboutness of the piece might be a little bit murky for someone trying to get a fuller, bigger picture. I'd written more about this character before as part of a novel and stories, but this is the first time I used the epistolary form. Each individual piece, though, is written a sort of confessional to someone who is important to her. I'd always been interested in the form, and I wanted to explore this narrator more. I wasn't entirely sure how to do it, and I thought it would be interesting to not only explore the narrator, but experiment with the ways that I could explore her relationship with the people that she's addressing throughout. I felt that a collection of flash pieces might be really, really good for doing this. And there's also just something really fun, I think, in writing in the second person. Sometimes as a reader, I'll have these weird simulated emotions based on my understanding of who is being addressed. Are they yelling at me, the reader, or are they yelling at the addressee, for instance? It's not me, obviously, but I'm being put into this role of the second person, and that's something that I think about a lot these days when I'm writing in the first person is, who is this person telling the story to? It can't be the reader, because the reader for my character, doesn't exist. It can't be themselves, because no one talks to themselves the way books are written. So I think that every narrator has a person in mind, and that person who they're telling the story to is going to greatly affect the way that they're telling the story. I really like talking about epistolary narratives, and it's funny because I never had formal training in writing epistolary narrative. No one ever turned them into workshops. where I did my PhD. It's just something that we didn't see a whole lot. A lot of tons of classics are written in this form, and a few short stories that I'm really a fan of, which I'll talk about in a minute. But this, the advice that I give here is really just going to be how I look at it. So this doesn't come from a theoretical perspective, but and this could be really basic for some people. I don't know. But the one tip I would give to someone trying to write an epistolary narrative, or just something written in the second person, would be to think about audience. If you're writing in this form, you don't have one major character outline to consider, the narrator. You know how, like, when they say that you should outline your characters in your head and get to know them. I actually think that you have two things to do: outline the narrator and outline your addressee. Try as much as possible to envision what this person is like. And in general, when I write in the first person, especially, I try to think about, as I said, who the story is being told to. What sort of information do these people need to know, and why? Why would the narrator want that particular person to know all of this stuff? Is this supposed to tell us more about the narrator, or do you want your reader to know more about the addressee? I think that they're going to work in tandem, and I think that you really need to have a grasp on who both of these people are. I recently reread Arvind Adiga's White Tiger, which is a super famous book. I think that it's exemplary because the narrator is writing to a very particular kind of person. He addresses it to his narrative to a very rich political figure in China. And this person is supposedly coming to visit India. And he wants this political figure to know all about India, but he is really specific in terms of the kinds of information that he's giving this political figure. I think it's the president, or it might, I can't remember. I'm having interview stuffiness right now where I can't remember words, but he pretends to be more than he is in order to impress this political figure, in order to sway them in a way. And everything that Adiga's narrator says is reliant on what he knows about this person, about their addressee. Now, I have a second story I want to mention. I mentioned a short story. This one is actually available online, and people can read it if you have access to the internet. Claire V. Watkins' The Last Thing We Need, which was published in Granta magazine. This is one of my favorite short stories, and I think it's particularly interesting, basically for the opposite reason that what I've been saying. In this story, the narrator finds an old vehicle in the desert, and they're rummaging through it, and they find some letters in there with the vehicle owner's address on them, and they just get this compulsion that they're going to start writing letters to this person, but they're a stranger and they don't know anything about them, so they sort of invent this addressee. So I think in the same way that Watkins probably had an addressee in mind, but the narrator had no idea, and it really came off as the ultimate confessional. And I kind of wanted to try that in my pieces here, but I was also a little hesitant about having the addressees be too big. And that's those are my two examples. Well, I'm really proud of the stuff the movements in America, the Black Lives Matter movements, everything. We just had a pretty important day here. And in terms of literature, I mean, I think this is probably the best time to be in and reading about all the social stuff that's happening. I don't really have any one particular thing in mind. Sort of surprised me with that one. But thank you very much for letting me do this.